Between the Chapters Book Club. Admin LJ here with one of our really exciting author panel events. You guys hear me say it all the time, how much I love doing these events. I love hosting these author Q&As. And I think I say I'm super excited for everyone because I really am super excited for everyone. I love getting the chance to talk with our authors. I really love getting the chance to talk to you guys. So I've been looking forward to this one for honestly weeks, if not months, since I first, came up with the idea with my team. This is a very special event. This is part of our summer-long reading challenge. If you haven't checked out our Booked for the Summer reading challenge, go check out our blog, check out our website, check it out. We've got tons of book recommendations for you guys all summer long. For June, of course, we had to do a special Pride Month edition of our reading challenge. And as part of that, we have 3 very special guests who all have books within the LGBTQ plus spectrum. They're all authors within the LGBTQ community. I'm really looking forward to this conversation as someone who is also part of the LGBTQ plus community. It's so exciting to get to work on these books and to get to talk with authors and readers who are so involved and so invested in these kinds of stories. It's just a really big treat for me personally. So I hope you guys are just as excited for this. As a special note, everyone who stays tuned throughout this hour, please stick around to the end of our broadcast because I'm going to be making a very special announcement for something coming our way in our book club. I have a sneak peek at something that you guys are not going to want to miss out on. So please stick around for the full hour. I promise you're not going to regret it. As always, if you leave us a question down in the comments section during the live portion of our broadcast, you will be automatically entered to win a flash giveaway. Who knows? Maybe I'll be extra generous and even give away 2 or 3 books. So you never know. Don't miss out on your chance to win some really cool advanced copies of some books. So leave us questions. We love chatting with you guys during these broadcasts. So I hope you will come join us, and I hope you have as much fun as I'm about to during our Q&A. Obviously, you're not here to chat with me as much as I love chatting with you guys. You're here to chat with our special guests. So I am really excited. I hope you will join me in welcoming our 3 guests. We have Matt Cain, author of The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle, which just released here in the US this month. We also have Frank Anthony Polito, author of Renovated to Death, the first book in his new cozy mystery series, and author Robin Geigel, author of Survivor's Guilt, which is her most recent book as well in her Erin McCabe series. I'm really looking forward to this, so help me welcome our special guests onto the screen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hey there.
Hi.
And I do have to say a special shout out. I didn't mention it in my intro, but thank you so much to Matt Cain. Matt, you are coming to us from a totally different time zone across the ocean. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's 10:30 in the evening here. So it's quite nice. I'm winding down after the day.
Oh, perfect. So this will be a nice little calm, relaxing way to end your evening.
Totally.
Perfect. Well, I would love it if you each would introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your book, about your work, give readers a little insight into who you are. And I'm going to let Robin kick us off.
Oh, sure. Pick on me. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Robin Geigel. I am the author of, as Lawrence said, Survivor's Guilt, which is the second book in the Erin McCabe series. Thank you. In addition to being an author, I am an attorney and an activist and a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I am a transgender woman. I have been practicing law for far too long, 45 years, and came to writing books very late in my career, but thrilled to have gotten here after trying to do this for 40 years. The first book in the Erin McCabe series is By Way of Sorrow, and it introduced readers to Erin McCabe and her law partner, Dwayne Swisher, both of whom have unique backstories. Aaron McCabe is a transgender criminal defense attorney. Go figure where I got the idea for that character. And Dwayne Swisher is a former FBI agent and a Black man who has been forced out of the FBI and becomes Aaron's law partner. And so they go off in search of criminal cases to defend people and run into a lot of legal and other things as they go along. So thank you.
Yeah, I was about to say, definitely some other things come up along the way. It's a very fun series if you love a suspense thriller. All right, perfect. And then Frank, how about we jump over to you? Please introduce yourself and your new book.
Sure. Happy Pride, everyone. My name is Frank Anthony Polito. You can call me Frank. I am a Lambda Literary Award-winning author, and I say that because it makes me so proud to say that. For my novel Drama Queers, which was Best Gay Romance of 2009. I can't even believe it's been that long. My new book is called Renovated to Death. It's the first in the Domestic Partners in Crime mystery series. And real quick, it's the story of a queer millennial couple who host a home renovation TV show where they live in a Detroit suburb. And as they're getting ready to work on their latest project, they find the owner of the house dead at the bottom of the staircase. So they need to figure out who done it, all of that cozy mystery, fun, and excitement. And this is my first book in almost 10 years. So I just want to thank Kensington Publishing for bringing me back, because it's so much more fun to call yourself an author than insert day job here.
I would imagine it is. Also, I would also introduce myself as an award winner at every chance I got. So I think you're totally justified in doing that. Yeah. Readers, if you haven't picked this book up, it is perfect for anyone who is an HGTV binge watcher. And it's such a fun, cozy series. So we'll definitely talk more about it during this hour.
Thank you.
So thank you, Frank. And Matt, over to you, all the way across the ocean at 10:30 at night. Please introduce yourself and your book.
My name is Matt Kane. I am in London, but my book, The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle, is actually set in the northwest of England, which is where I was born and brought up. It's an uplit novel, as they call them now. It's about a shy, lonely, unhappy, but secretly gay older man. He's a postman in his 60s. And he has a series of life crises that make him want to change things, that make him want to turn his life around. He wants to be happy finally. And he knows that the way to do this is to delve back into his past, confront an unresolved trauma, and set off in search of the lost love of his life, a man he hasn't seen for nearly 50 years. So the book traces his journey. As he goes to find him, you get flashbacks along the way, which reveal gradually what happened to them 50 years ago for them to lose touch. And I won't tell you what happens, but I will say that I've said it's an uplit book, so it's very uplifting. He learns to connect with his community. He makes lots of unexpected friendships. And it's all about grabbing second chances and making the most out of life.
Yes, I have to say I'm such a sucker for books that really highlight friendships and found communities. And I really love lost connection stories. But on top of all of that, readers, if you haven't read this one yet, it's just going to make you want to visit England so bad. I wanted to get on a plane as soon as I finish. So if you have a travel bug, this book is going to get you a little bit. So thank you all so much for telling us a little bit about your books. They're obviously, each one of you mentioned a little bit how these stories were. Sorry, I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. I know for Robin, your character, is also a transgender character. You did say that you are a transgender woman as well. So would you each classify your books as own stories and own voices books? And I'm curious if so, or if not, how your own experiences might have impacted your writing, or did they impact your writing in these stories? And And Robin, not to pick on you, but this question was inspired by you. So I would love if you would kick us off.
Well, I guess it's kind of hard for me to deny that it's a Own Voices story. I mean, I have been practicing law for 45 years. I've done a lot of criminal defense work. I am a transgender woman. So yes, in that sense, it's an Own Stories, an Own Voices story. But I wanted to make it's not me. I mean,
Right.
yes, the character, when I wrote By Way of Sorrow, the old bromide, write what you know, it was my first novel that came to be published. So, I did want to write about something that I knew something about, and being a trans woman and being a criminal defense attorney are two things that I do know something about. And so I did want to do that, but I didn't want the character to be me. And she's not. She is a unique character, much better lawyer than I think I am, probably a lot braver than I am. It's probably my idealized self in some way. She's also much younger than I am. So, but I thought it was important, because I do kind of have a unique perspective in the sense that there aren't many legal thriller writers out there who are trans, who are writing about trans characters. And I think it's important when you have that unique platform that you use it to show other people how normal our lives are and how we're just like everybody else. And so that was the goal. It wasn't to write a trans book. It was to write a legal thriller that happened to have a trans character.
Yeah. And I really love that. I personally am not a huge mystery thriller fan. Readers know this. I did read this series, obviously, because I work on them. I try to read all the books I work on. But even outside of that, I was really intrigued by this book because, like you said, when you read it, it's not that, yes, this character is trans and does work in the legal field, but that's not all the character is. And I found that really refreshing because so often we do kind of pigeonhole characters like that, and we want that to be the spokesperson or the spokesmoment. So I love that it's so much bigger than just that. So thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
And then Matt, how about you? Is your book an Own Voices story? And if so, how did your life impact how the story came out, or is it not really an impact point?
Yeah, there is. I mean, my last novel was very autobiographical. And with this one, it's not so much on the surface. As I say, it's set in the northwest of England. It's set in a kind of community that I know, the kind of northern working class community. But the central character is a good 20 years older than me. And I write in the close third person narration, so I get into the heads of characters. And if you look at the supporting cast, well, the girl he makes closest friendship with is a 19-year-old single mother who's Black. So I kind of don't really know what it means, Own Voices, because I would never want to write a novel that only had one character in. And I'd always want to have a diversity of viewpoints and backgrounds and gender and ethnicity, and I could never be from all. There could never be Own Voices, but all of them. But I mean, I like to think that I felt all the emotions that my characters feel, and I don't think I'd be able to. I like writing very emotional books, or emotive, I should say. And I don't think I'd be able to do that if I hadn't experienced them. So, for example, Albert is 64. He's stuck in his ways. He's lonely. He shuts himself off from the world. That's not my experience, but I did get to 40 and I'd been single for a long time, and all my best friends were not only attached, but in long-term relationships, married, kids. And I did feel like, what's wrong with me that it's not happened for me? And I did feel loneliness. And then at the age of 44, I met the man I'm now marrying, who had only come out the year before. And he had a long journey of his own. He had past trauma, and kind of working through his feelings with him, and I was writing the book at the time, a lot of that added to the emotional depth in there. So that's not my voice. Some of it is my voice. Some of it's my other half's voice.
Right.
There's lots of other voices in there. I don't know whether I've answered the question. I don't really know what own voices means.
Yes, no, you've absolutely answered the question. And I think it's a great point that you know, aspects of the story can be own voices without the entire story being own voices. And I really love that you talked about how you put the emotions into the story, because you do write a very emotional book. I definitely experienced a plethora of emotions while reading this book. Anyone who knows me knows I'm easily emotional. So there were tears, but I'm also easy to cry. But I do think
two of us then. That's the both of us.
so perfect. So I definitely think, I mean, you can definitely tell that those emotions come from a real and authentic place. So absolutely, it's definitely own voices in that way. So thank you for that. And then Frank, over to you. Same question, you know, how have your experiences impacted your writing? Is your book an own voices book in that retrospect? Did your experiences impact your writing?
Yes, it is own voices in that I'm a gay man and my narrator is a gay man.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a Detroit suburb. He lives in a Detroit suburb. My partner and I bought a 1924 Craftsman colonial house that we've been renovating. He and his partner have done the same. We're both writers. The difference is that he's a millennial. I'm not. He's a best-selling author. I am not yet.
Yes.
He has a TV show. I do not. So, you know, like I think both Matt and Robin said, as writers, we write what we know, and then we make the characters better versions of ourselves, or sometimes, I guess, you know, worse versions of ourselves, depending on the effect that we're going for. But, you know, I used the experience of moving back to Michigan after living in New York, and buying this house and getting a dog and renovating it. And characters are based on neighbors, and my best friend I always throw in, and I like to refer to my favorite movie and things like that, just to make sure that the character who's telling you the story has the same quirky personality that I have and my sense of humor.
I love that. I have always dreamed of owning a Craftsman home and doing, I wouldn't want to do the renovations, but getting to have someone help me do the renovations. But I'm also just not patient enough for any of that. So I commend you for that component of things for sure.
I want to see the house. We can only see 2 doors. I want to see more.
I know. I feel like, Frank, you're going to have to take us on like a house tour one of these days. We're going to have to do like a special edition so you can show us everything you're working on.
Well, one thing I did mention that they live in, I don't know if I mentioned, in the book, they live in the same house I live in. So everything you read about their house is my house. My furniture is their furniture. And one thing that I've loved about having a book out in this year now is we have Instagram, and I can post pictures of the house so that readers who have read the book can see what I'm talking about. And I can show you the before and the after shots. And
I'm following you right now.
Please do.
I was going to say,
I've even done some videos, which I haven't posted yet because they need to be edited. But, you know, social media makes our lives fun as authors, but it also makes it more complicated, unfortunately, or fortunately.
I was about to say, oh, you maybe shouldn't have mentioned that to me, because now I'm just going to insist you get on TikTok and do renovation videos. So that's going to be a conversation.
That's one. I don't even know if my millennial narrator would be on TikTok, because he is on a TV show, but he sort of always keeps in the background and lets his partner, who's a former actor, and the eye candy do all the work.
I don't know. I got to tell you, as a millennial, I never thought I would be on TikTok. And yet now I spend 90% of my day hanging out on TikTok. So I think we could make it work. I'm just saying.
All right. Twist my arm.
All right. Well, I won't berate you any further on the live stream. We'll have another conversation later. But I will move on to our next question. You know, you mentioned that, Frank, you mentioned that you put your best friend into your stories, and you like to have these real world components. we have a question that readers always love to ask, and that's whether or not you put people you know in these books, which obviously, Frank, you said you did. But as a twist on that question, have you ever put someone who, this particularly for Robin and Frank, and then Matt, I'm going to tweak it when we get over to you, but have you ever named someone who didn't survive to the end of your novel after someone who wronged you or that you don't get along with, someone you've got a grudge against? That was a reader question a while back. It's one of my favorites. So have you ever killed off someone that you didn't like in your books? And Frank, we're going to start with you.
In this particular book, no.
Okay.
And I'll preface it by saying that I don't ever name the characters' real names, but like if my friend in real life's name is Kelly, then in the book her name is Shelley. But in my next book, Rehearsed to Death, it tells the story of my couple who are on hiatus from the reality show. And so they're doing a play that the writer has written and the actor is starring in. And the director is this pompous British, no offense, Matt, pompous British. He's British by way of Southeast Asia. Theater director who's a total diva. And he dies, and there's going to be no hiding it from anyone who knows me that he is based on someone I worked with in the past who I did not get along with. And part of me feels like he doesn't even deserve the satisfaction of being in my book. But I honestly don't think, maybe someone will tell him, but it felt good.
So to say, I bet it was very satisfying,
yes,
though.
It was very satisfying.
Right.
But that's, next year we'll have to come back and do this again.
I was going to say, so readers, stay tuned. We'll have to circle back around and see if we can get more details on that soon. Robin, how about you? Have you ever killed off someone in your book or put someone in your book in a very tricky situation that you maybe had a little grudge against?
No, I can honestly say I haven't. And I purposely avoid doing that because, I am still practicing law. So I don't want people to think that they're characters in the book because they're not. So no, I have never killed off anyone that I didn't like. I have put characters in there based on people that I really do like. So, for example, Erin McCabe's mom, her name is Peg McCabe, and she is honestly an homage to my mom. When I came out, 14 years ago to my mom, she struggled, but, once we got through it, and she came to accept me for who I was, we had a better relationship. And we always had a great relationship, but we had a better relationship. And my mom had a wicked sense of humor. And Peg has a good sense of humor. So Peg is really just an homage to my mom. My mom passed away in 2020. And I say, as long as I can write Peg McCabe, my mom is still alive. And then the other person that I kind of used as a template in Survivor's Guilt is a brother-in-law of mine who spent a career in law enforcement and was a detective in one of the county prosecutor's office, and is a unique character in his own right, a storyteller, just somebody who loves an audience and to entertain an audience, and looks like he should be in a biker bar. And that's how he started his career, doing undercover work. And so one of the detectives in Survivor's Guilt is based very loosely on my brother-in-law. And again, in a very positive way, because I really respect him. He spent more than 25 years in law enforcement. And so it was kind of my way of just giving a nod and saying, read this guy. I think you might recognize some parts of him.
I love that. I do. Now I feel a little guilty for asking a question that definitely I was just trying to get some drama and dirt and gossip off of everyone. And you gave such a sweet, wonderful, wholesome answer. So, all right. Make me feel a little bad there. But thank you. That was wonderful. I love hearing that. And then Matt, for you, obviously you don't kill off people in your uplifting, humorous book full of emotions. But do you work in any real people into your books? You know, you said that you some of your partners' emotions and experiences did work their way into the book, but do you actually work any people you know into the book or their names?
Well, funnily enough, my last book was a kind of coming of age novel, which was loosely based on my experience. And there were lots of relationships in there. And I didn't want to give any man I'd ever been out with the satisfaction of putting him in the book
Right.
or making him think he recognized himself. And actually, I mean, obviously these thoughts cross my mind because I'm not so wholesome as Robin, but I have never done that actually. I always think the best revenge is living well and rising above them. And obviously I'll slag them off when I'm not in the pages of my book. But what I do like to do is pay tribute to people who have meant something to me, who've impacted on my life in a positive way. And I always name characters, not every character in the book, but I always name characters after people who've been positive influences in my life. So, for example, in this book, the youngest character, the little girl Irene, is named after the oldest person in my life, my grandmother, who's just turned 100,
Wow.
Irene. Her mum, my great grandma, who died when I was 18, her name was Edith Graham. She's a lead character in the book. The character Marjorie is named after my auntie Marjorie, who died about 10 years ago. But in terms of the other two, Robin and Frank mentioned basing characters and characteristics and personalities on people they know. I don't do that, only for one simple reason, and that's just that my day job for years before doing this was I was a journalist and I was a TV producer making documentaries. And as everybody knows, any journalist who's doing a half decent job is supposed to tell the truth. Anybody who makes documentaries is supposed to stick to reality. And I did that for more than 15 years. And I still do bits of journalism on the side. But having to stick to reality when you actually want to tell a good story and chop and change the story arc and tidy things up a bit in the narrative is quite frustrating. So what I like more than anything now is making things up and letting my imagination run free. So I don't tend to base characters on people from real life, actually.
That's perfect. Again, you guys all gave such great answers to that. And I'm over here just like, I just want to know who else like me would hold a grudge. I would hold grudges. And if I were to write, they would definitely meet some interesting ends in my books. You guys are all much better than me. So that's great to know. You know, Matt, you talked a little bit about some of your favorite parts of writing and that you like to let your imagination kind of run free. So I would love to kind of shift us over into a craft-based question and some crafting questions while I've got you guys on this chat. What are some of the most challenging parts of writing? You know, our book club does have quite a few members who are interested in becoming authors, who are on their road to becoming published. And I think it would be really great to have you guys all talk about, you know, what are the things about being a writer that maybe you weren't prepared for, or you just realized this is not my favorite part of this job. And Matt, since you started us, you were kind of the inspiration for this question. I would love if you would kick us off on the answer.
There's lots I absolutely love, but there's lots I don't like as much. When you're doing rewrites and edits and you get down into the detail, I can find that less fulfilling. I love the actual creation and making it up. The things I find difficult are exposition, giving all the information at the beginning and weaving it in naturally so the reader doesn't feel like they're absorbing all the information, you know, but you need to get it in. Doing all the long scene setting stuff I don't enjoy as much. I love dialogue, emotion, I like plot. I like
Mhm.
rattling things along. What I tend to do is really plan things out with a book so I know where it's going. And what happens is when I'm in the moment, I sometimes end up doing something different. And I think it's inspired in the moment, but it always turns out to be crap. And actually, what I planned was the best. What I planned was the best. The funny thing with Albert, with this book, is I didn't plan it as much. I can't even remember why now. I was kind of, I kind of did it more on a flow, and I had to do, and I wrote it on spec before I got a publishing deal. I'm in a deal now, so with the next two books in my domestic deal in the UK, before I write them, I'll do a scene by scene synopsis, and I go through it with my editor. With this one, I didn't, and consequently, there was a lot of rewriting involved, and that's really important and really makes or breaks a book. But I don't find it as much fun. And when you make one little change and it has these knock-on effects for tens of thousands of words, the other two are nodding straight
Right.
away.
I was going to say, everyone seems to be agreeing there.
It's so frustrating. Whereas actually the new book that I'm writing, I literally planned it out scene by scene, chapter by chapter. So much as my editor had lots to say and I did make changes, there were no structural changes. So it was so much easier. Anyway, that's me on craft. Sorry, I think I've talked too much.
No, you're great. That's perfect. I couldn't imagine. Readers in our book club know I once dreamed of being a writer until I realized not for me. I do not have the patience, do not have the dedication. Like you, I think I would get very frustrated very quickly, both with the rewrites, and I would not be able to stick to a plan. But I need to plan, so it would just be chaos across the board. But enough about me. Frank, how about you? What is one of those things about writing that you either didn't anticipate or just really it's your least favorite thing to deal with?
Well, this is my fifth book, but it's my first mystery. So, the others were like coming of age, quote, gay fiction, And when I first started writing, I've always written, like I was the kid when I was 10, the teacher would say, write a 3-page story, and I would write like 20 pages just because maybe I wanted to show off, I don't know. But I just enjoyed writing. But I remember when I wrote my first play, which is what my first novel was based on, I just kind of like sat at my computer and I did what I call thinking and typing. I just thought it and I typed it, and I thought it and I typed it. And I've later since learned, like, that's what you do the first draft, and then you have to read it, and then you have to type some more, and then you have to read it, and it takes a very long time. And I think a lot of people, because, you'll watch a movie or you'll see a TV show, and it's like someone will sit down and type, and they never make a mistake, and I'm the worst typer in the world because I never took typing in school because my teachers thought, why does he need to learn to type? He can take choir and drama and band, So, but I've since learned that, you don't see them write it and then that's the book. And what I do though is because I have training as an actor, I always write in first person, and I always think of it as I am the character doing a one-person show, and I am telling you the story. So after I've written it, I read it out loud. And if I can't say it, or I get tripped up, or if I hear myself like repeating a word too many times, I know that I need to fix it. And I'm very excited to announce that I am going to be having my first audiobook, and I'm going to be narrating it. And I've never done it before, and it's so corny to say, but it's a dream come true, because one of my favorite things about having an author event is reading the book, because I don't act anymore. So for that little, 7 to 10 minutes, I get to act. But the hardest part about the mystery was you have to plot it out even more so than any other story. You have to come up with a victim that more than one person wants to kill. Then you have to come up with backstories for all of those characters. And that while it does sound like it's tedious and painful, which it is, That's what makes it fun, you know? And like Matt said, I do an outline, but I do my outline so thoroughly that I write chapter 1 and I write what day it is, literally like April 1st, 2021, 10 o'clock a.m. because I have to keep track. Otherwise, if you just say like, oh, a week later or the next day, or, you know, you just get confused. And it's better to try to take care of everything up front because you don't want to get notes later that from someone telling you you did it wrong, and then you have to redo it, and then you get that trickle down effect of, you know, everything, one thing messing up the next, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time I write a book, I say I'm never going to do it again. It's painful physically, but book number 6 is, you know, being finished right now, so I must enjoy it.
As I say, I have to say, from a selfish point of view, being from Kensington, we're glad that you didn't just give it up. You know, we're happy that you kept writing.
Well, I'm happy that you allow me to do so.
Also, that's super exciting news that you're going to be narrating your audiobook. I used to dream of being an audiobook narrator until I realized that you have to do the different voices for every character and remember the voices for every character. I would never make it.
That's what's scaring me, the remembering the voices. But
yeah, I would never make it. I also love that you said that as overwhelming as it is to plan out the mystery part and to follow all those clues, that's one of the things that makes it fun. That sounds like the opposite of fun for me. So I'm glad it's fun for you.
So far, book 1.
I was to say, so far.
We'll see how I feel in book 12 when, like, I don't know how they can do it in these cozies. Like, there's going to be no one left in the town if they're all dead, but...
You think so, but they always come back. There's
Angela
always
Lansbury could do it, so I guess my guys will.
You'll come up with some. I have faith. All right, perfect. And then, Robin, over to you. Are there any parts of the writing process that you were either shocked to realize that you didn't know, or that you were shocked to realize you don't enjoy it?
So first, to start with the fact that, as I said earlier, I came to this very late in life. So I knew nothing about publishing, writing. I mean, it was a learning process for me just in terms of how the whole system works. And so one piece of advice that I would give to would-be writers that are listening is don't be discouraged. It is a learning process. It's a learning process just in how to craft a query letter to get an agent, how to, you know, do all those things and get used to people saying no to you. But don't view it as rejection, view it as a learning experience, because if you take it as rejection, you'll get really discouraged really early on in the process, and you might think this is not for you. And yet, I don't know too many authors who didn't have that experience of being rejected by agents or publishers or whatever. So don't be discouraged by the no's that you get. In terms of my actual process, I'm going to make it unanimous in terms of agreeing with Matt and Frank. I hate editing. I hate it. I'm in the process of editing book 3 now in the Erin McCabe series. And it's just like, you know, writing that first draft was so easy, you know, that this now just seems very, in some respects, tedious. So I will make that part unanimous. I'm a little bit different than Matt and Frank in the sense that when I wrote By Way of Sorrow, which is the first book in the series, it was completely fly by the seat of the pants. I had the idea in my head. I had the characters in my head, but where that story was going to go, it turned out very different from what I imagined. And people who I thought, when I was kind of thinking it through in my head, who were going to die, lived, and people who I thought were going to live, died. So, I mean, that was a truly fun experience. And as I think Matt said, you know, you just kind of like let the characters take over and go wherever they're going to go. And that was my experience with that. But when I was fortunate enough that Kensington purchased By Way of Sorrow, I got signed to a 2-book deal. And so I remember saying to my agent, "That's great, but I only have 1 book." And she said, "You'll write book 2. And I found out that when you have a 2-book deal, that you do have to do that outline for your editor and send it to them and say, okay, here's what I'm thinking book 2 is going to be about. And so they say, yeah, we think this is worth publishing. Go ahead and write it. So book 2, Survivor's Guilt, was a lot more plotted than By Way of Sorrow was. But I will say that I have discovered, I don't do that outline like Frank does, where 10:55 a.m. April 1st, 2020. That wasn't the outline that I had to do for my editor at Kensington. It was more just a general overview of what the book was going to be about, and John gives me a lot of freedom in terms of working within that outline, because sometimes I have found that when you do that outline, it goes point A to point B to point C. And then when you sit down to write it, you find out that you can't get to point B from point A without going through A1, C2, D3, and then to point B. So I've discovered that even when I outline, I wind up flying by the seat of my pants, probably a little bit more than my editor would like. But so far it's worked out, and that's kind of been my experience with book 3 as well. So
I love that. I kind of love that everyone has similar dislikes with the process, in particular the heavy process of editing. I definitely have to say, like, I would never make it through the editing process. I cannot stand to reread my own work, even here in a professional setting. My poor boss is like, just read over it. I don't like to read my own words. So I commend you guys for having to reread your own stuff more times than I think readers actually realize. You are constantly having to reread your work. So that is like a superpower to me. So congratulations on that. As a step in a different direction a little bit here, this is actually going to tie in perfectly. Robin, you mentioned a piece of advice that you would give to writers. We actually have a reader who would love to know what the best piece of writing advice you ever received was. So Robin, I don't know if that would be the same piece of advice that you gave just a bit ago, but if not, what is the best piece of writing advice you've ever received?
I think it is the same thing. It is, don't get discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think it was probably easier for me because I do have a career outside of writing that pays my mortgage and does all those kinds of things. Right. So it wasn't something that I was dependent upon to support myself or to pay the bills, whatever. It was something that I pursued as a passion, as something that I've always wanted to do, and now finally had the time and the ability in terms of my kids are grown. I live by myself. I have that opportunity to do it. And so when my agent, was saying, don't be discouraged, don't give up, don't, this is going to work out, keep at it, keep rewriting it. Let's do it again. I think, I had maybe the opportunity that a lot of people don't have to take the time to keep doing it over again and to not view it as, oh my God, this is never going to work out for me, as opposed to, okay, all right, I'll do it again. And patience, I think, is something that is in short supply in a lot of different areas, but I think you definitely need it as a writer in terms of your own thought processes, in terms of getting things down on the paper, in terms of editing it, but then in terms of when other people read it, saying, this didn't work for me. And one other piece of advice that I think all writers have are beta readers. Use beta readers and take their advice, because when somebody else takes a fresh look at your work, as you said, you get so, like you read it again and again, and you stop reading what's on the page and you're reading what's in your head. And when somebody else reads it, they come to it fresh and they say, this didn't work for me. And again, take that advice, listen to people and listen to what they're saying, while you have that opportunity.
Perfect. I love that. That's all really great advice. And we're going to jump over to Frank next. Frank, what is the piece of writing advice that, the best advice you got that has really stuck with you?
It's very tough. But the thing that's coming to mind, I just got recently from my editor, and he said, ignore the reviews. And
Yes.
the bad ones, but also the good ones. And this is what I mean. Like, whenever I for now, I've stopped reading my reviews. I started reading them when the book first came out, and then I stopped because I personally believe everything that the bad ones say, and the good ones, I think they're just being polite. So, it's discouraging to hear people, unless like they absolutely get it wrong. Like I had one where they said, I can't believe he named the characters PJ and JP, and then he's got Tom and Ted. And I was like, well, no, I have Tom and Terry. So you got it wrong. So, if you're going to call me out or criticize me, please get it right.
Right.
So, ignore the reviews. But like Robin said about don't get discouraged, I want to tell everyone who's watching and listening who has aspirations to write to also not get discouraged, because I do not have an agent. And I did not, like Matt, write a book for the sake of writing a book and then try to get it published. I met my editor, told him about a play I'd written. He read the play. He said he wanted me to turn it into a novel. So there are there's these rules in publishing. You have to do this, and you have to write a query letter, and you have to get an agent, and then you can get. No, yes, it works that way, but not always. So after I published 2 books and won a Lambda Literary Award, then I tried to get an agent, and then I started getting rejected. And then I was actually told by someone, your writing is too good for the kind of books we publish. So, you just have to do it to the best of your ability, write the story you want to tell, and find the person who is going to give you the opportunity to do it. And I even self-published 2 books because I couldn't find someone else to do it. They were young adult books, and Kensington wasn't publishing young adult books. And I wrote them on spec. I wrote them for myself, and I didn't want to just let them sit in a drawer somewhere or a file on my computer. And I self-published them. And they're really good books that a lot of people, unfortunately, haven't read because I didn't have a publishing house behind me. Mm-hmm. But, if you want to see your work in print, you can do it yourself. Just be forewarned that you won't have a great marketing or publicity team to get you out there like this. Yeah. But you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Everyone can do it. Everyone has stories to tell, which is the great thing about stories. But I will say, I definitely agree with your editor. Don't read reviews. It's as a social media person on your marketing team, just goes for everyone. Never read the reviews. It's fine. You don't need to see them. But thank you, Frank. That was a really great answer and some really great advice too. Matt, how about you? What is some writing advice you've received that just really sticks with you?
Well, I will just say very quickly, just to echo what the other 2 have said, I've also had horrendous rejection and could talk about that all night, but you do have to not take it personally. You have to keep your blinkers up and keep your eye on the prize and not let it get to you. What's the best advice? I've not necessarily had other writers give me advice, but I've read things, often craft-based tips, like when you're doing a first draft, write every day, because if you've got all these characters and plots and subplots and themes alive in your head, once you step out of it, it's quite hard. If you take the weekend off, it takes me all day on Monday to get back into it. I sometimes take a Sunday off, but I tend to, if I'm writing a first draft, do at least 6 days a week because I find that easier. And then there's that thing that Stephen King always says, once you've done the first draft, leave it for 6 weeks. And then you've got the fresh eyes that Robin was talking about that you often need to get from other people, but you can get them from yourself if you leave it. But what I would say, one piece of advice that another writer, Rose Tremaine, did tell me was when you think you are ready to start writing a book, don't. Leave it for another couple of months, because by that stage, this book, these characters, the color, the context, the themes that have been going round and round in your head for so long, they are desperate to burst out. And I've done that, actually. I've not necessarily waited 6 months, which I think is what she said. But when I've been ready to start, I've made myself keep it in for a bit longer, and it just grows and grows and grows, the idea, and takes shape more and more. And by the time you sit down, it literally just bursts out. So yeah, that's my piece of advice.
That's really interesting. I've never heard that piece of advice, but it makes so much sense once you like laid it out like that. That's really fascinating. I would have never thought of that one. So that is definitely a pro tip.
It works.
All right. I love it. All right. So I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 more reader questions that just came in before we run out of time. So the first one is, do you read for fun? And if so, do you read outside of the genre you write in? If so, what are the genres you like to read? So we will start with Frank, since you do have kind of a varied genre backlist compared to your cozy mystery that just came out. So how about you? What kind of genres do you read? Do you get to read for fun?
I don't read a lot when I'm writing because I either steal what I'm reading if it's really good. I don't do it intentionally, but I start writing like the person I'm reading. Or if it's really good, then I start thinking it's better than me, and then it really makes me depressed, and then I can't write anymore. So what I do read is I love to read young adult, and I just read my first graphic novel, and I loved it, and I keep giving it a shout out. It's old by now, I think. It's called Bloom by Kevin Panetta and Savannah, and I never know how to pronounce her last name. Starts with a G, and it's French. Loved it. It's a queer, two young guys, 20-something. They work together in a bakery, and it's about blooming, their love blooming, and the bread blooming, and it's beautifully told and beautifully illustrated, and I just love it. And I actually started reading it because I want to write my own graphic novel next. So it was great inspiration, and I'm sure that if I read it while I'm writing my graphic novel, then I'll probably feel terrible, but I do love it. And I always try to read, I love to read young adult because my narrator's name is Peter because he suffers from Peter Pan syndrome, and that's me. I am Peter Pan. I will never grow up. And I love to read about people who don't have real jobs and have to worry or pay mortgages.
You know, growing up is so boring. It's a scam. Never do it. I don't know why. We were all convinced to do it.
Yeah.
It's the worst. But I love that answer. And I do have to second that if you are interested in looking into graphic novels, to read that one. I am also not a graphic novel reader, and I loved that. So definitely recommend checking that one out. All right. How about over to you, Matt? You know, do you get to read for fun? Do you read within the genres that you write in, or do you read outside genre?
I agree with Frank. I can't read while I'm writing a first draft. I just can't do it because I'm so immersed in what I'm doing. I'm thinking about it when I'm in bed and everything. Other than that, I do read literally all the time, everything, every genre, high to low, all age ranges. And I think it all feeds in. The last book I read was Lessons in Chemistry. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was amazing. What happens when you become known for writing in a certain genre is that you get other publishers and authors and agents approaching you to ask for quotes for the back of books. And often what happens there is they're, the same genre and stuff. So it becomes a bit more, you end up reading less for pleasure and it's partly for work. Although if they're in the same genre and they're good, it is also pleasurable. But it becomes a bit more difficult to separate. Also, I'm always thinking about the next book I'm going to write, and I kind of, when I start writing a book, I read everything I can find that's vaguely on that subject. But I basically read everything.
I commend you for that. I try to read cross genre, and I can't do it. I try. I fight it every time. So I'm always impressed when people can. So that's really cool to me. So thank you, Matt. And Robin, over to you. Do you get to read for fun? You have a very busy life with your day job on top of writing. So I don't know if you have time to read for fun, but if you do you read outside of the genre that you write in?
So the answer is yes, I do read for fun. I will agree with both Frank and Matt that when I'm in the midst of writing, it's harder for me to read. But I read two times when I'm, in the midst of writing. Number one, when I sit down to have dinner or something like that, I'll sit down with a book. I don't watch the television. I sit down with a book and I read. And now that it's summer, I live about 100 yards from the beach. So can't write when I go to the beach. So I'll take a good book with me. So those are kind of the times that I read even when I'm writing. And of course, when I'm not writing, I read all the time. I do like mysteries and thrillers. There's no question about it. But I do read outside the genre. I just finished Hell of a Book by Jason Mott, which won the National Book Award for 2021, I guess. And just absolutely an amazing book. And for authors, an amazing book because it's a story about a hell of a book. And he's on like this tour and he's always being asked questions about his book. So from an author standpoint, it was a very interesting read. But it's about the racial tensions in this country and Black people being shot and things like that. It was emotional. It was just an amazing book that I've been raving about and suggesting everybody read. So I do like to read outside the genre, but I will also confess that right now I'm reading Runner by Tracy Clark. So I'm reading within the genre, and I'm finding that to be an amazing book. But I read at dinner time or on the beach. So.
I just as a very quick aside before I do our last reader question, I've never heard the excuse, well, I can't write while I'm on the beach, so I might as well read. I'm curious if your editor buys that excuse ever. Knowing your editor, I have a feeling he might have some thoughts on that one, but it's a good excuse. I'm going to use that for work next time.
But I haven't missed a deadline, so I'm okay.
That's very true. I'm going to take a page out of your book. Next time I have a deadline, oh, I can't write. I'm on the beach. Sorry. I love that. All right. Very last reader question. We're going to squeeze it in under the wire. This is one of my favorite questions, so I'm really glad a reader asked it this time. If you could spend a day in the life of one of the characters in your book, any character in your most recent book, which character would you want to be for a whole day? This is a tricky one. So if someone already knows the response, throw up a hand. You can go first. I'll give everyone time to think about their answer.
I know.
Okay.
I said it's about a 60-something gay man looking for the lost love of his life. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you whether or not he finds him, but his story is obviously, his backstory is obviously a lot less represented in the book. And I'd like to go into his head and his character because I want to know more and I want to make it up myself and I want to explore that character.
Perfect. I love that. Little mystery, little intrigue. Perfect. How about you, Frank? Any thoughts on what character you would be for a day?
I think off the top of my head, I have to say I have a character in the story. His name is Bob. He's like the guy in town that, I won't say he's a busybody or a gossip, but he just knows everything about everyone. And on social media, he's known as Fairway Bob because he lives on Fairway Street, Fairway Lane. Fairway Bob is what he's called. But the reason I would want to be Fairway Bob is because he owns an antique and like an antique store with furniture and I just love old things. You know, our house, we have our dining room set is from 1910. I found it from a dealer in Pennsylvania. I just love like living in the 1924 house. You know, I don't want it to look like you walk into a time machine when you walk into our house, but I feel like these houses that look old on the outside and then they're all modernized on the inside, I just feel like that's no fun. So I've
Mhm.
tried to fill the house with you know, stickly mission style furniture and wood and lots of wood. And so if I could be Fairway Bob and be in that store all day long, surrounded by all of those great antiques and all of that furniture, I think that would be probably a good way to spend a day. And then you know, the money you make, because people pay stupid prices for it.
Yes.
So I
The
always look for the bargains, but you know, it's ridiculous because I go on these online auctions and I'll say I'm going to bid $300, and then it'll sell for like 3,000, and I'll just think,
right.
who's got $3,000 to pay for a lamp? Not me.
Well, certainly not me. But I will say I I love that solely for the name. I would also just want to be Fairway Bob just for the name Fairway Bob. Like that's
Fairway
just a
Bob.
fun name to have. So love that. Thank you. And Robin, over to you. Is there one character in your book that you would like to be for a day?
How could I not pick Erin McCabe?
Right.
I mean, Erin is more than 30 years younger than me. She's attractive. She leads a lot more exciting life than I do. And so I'll keep it really simple. Yeah, Erin McCabe.
You say exciting. I would also posture dangerous, a little deadly. So maybe not the best, but I do like the other justifications of, you know, just that young energy and excitement. Let's go with excitement.
And as I said, she is a better lawyer than I am. So, I mean, you know.
I just really find that hard to believe, but all right, we're not going to argue because we're out of time on our live Q&A. So I am going to let you guys say good night to our readers, and then readers stick around for just a minute because I'm going to give you an exclusive sneak peek at something exciting. So please help me and thank our three authors, Matt, Frank, Robin. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an amazing hour chat.
Thank you. And
Thank
again,
you.
happy Pride, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you. And
Pride.
second what Frank said, happy Pride to everybody.
Yes. Thank you all so much. I'm going to take you off screen for just a few. Readers, thank you for hanging out with us for the hour. Of course, always so much fun. This was such a great chat. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I'm not gonna keep you on pins and needles. I know you're really excited to find out what this secret sneak peek is. Please come back over to our group. Next week, we are going to be making a super big special announcement. The only clue I can give you is exclusive giveaways, exclusive sneak peeks, and maybe some super exclusive ARCs, advanced copies of books you're not going to be able to grab as early as you're going to grab during this special promotion. I'm really excited about it. We've been working on it for months. You guys are going to love it. I'm going to give you a first look at something that I think is going to sway you to come and hang out with us next week when we make our announcement. We just got our very first branded tote bags. Look how cute these are. You guys, this is just the beginning. So if you're super excited, like I am, about a branded tote bag, super cute beach bag, we've got more coming. We've got some super fun items on the way. So come hang out in the book club group all next week. We're going to make some big announcements. We're going to tell you what it's all about. We're going to tell you how you can get your own tote bag. I hope to see you then, and I hope you'll stick around with us. Thank you again for joining us for the live chat. This was a great time. I hope you had fun. I had fun, and I hope to see you for the next one. Have a great evening.